What's up guys, and welcome to my Rin Tohsaka build guide. In this video I'm taking you over what you need to know in order to build and understand her, including a kit overview, Lightcone recommendations, relic sets and planar ornament options, the main sets you want to run, sub-stat goals especially for sub DPS with speed tuning explained, for how you would actually build her when it comes to speed for Archer team specifically. Her basic attack does quantum damage based off her attack to a designated enemy. Her skill does quantum damage based off her attack to a designated enemy. Her ultimate does quantum damage based off her attack to a designated enemy and also other enemies, so it is an AoE. Using it recovers a skill point for allies and increases damage taken by all enemies by 20% for 3 turns. Her talent gives 20 gem energy entering combat. Allies consuming or recovering skill points will make their crit damage increase by 70% for 2 turns. Every skill point consumed or recovered gives Rin 1 gem energy. Rin holding 15 or more gen energy, or if current skill points are 7 or more, will enhance her skill. Her enhanced skill does quantum damage equal to 90% of her attack to all enemies, then 3 gem energy to additionally deal quantum damage equal to 90% of Rin's attack to a random enemy, and will repeat until gem energy is less than 3 or there are no enemies on the field with HP greater than 0. Repeats up to 33 cycles. When used, if current skill points are greater than 2, consume skill points down to 2. For each point consumed, immediately gains 2 gem energy. Her unique joint follow-up attack with Archer is when Archer uses his skill, if skill points are 3 or fewer, or if skill from Archer is used 5 times actively during the current circuit connection state, and also the joint attack has not been triggered yet. Rin and Archer launches a joint follow-up attack that does quantum damage equal to 300% of Rin and Archer's attack respectively, recovering 4 skill points for the allies as well. The joint attack can only trigger once, with the trigger count resetting when Rin's turn ends. Her technique gives Rin 10 gem energy at the start of the next battle. For bonus traces, her A2 increases the upper limit of skill points by 2 when she's on the field. Entering combat will increase Rin's attack by 150%, and quantum res pen increases by 15%. If Archer is on the team, he also gains the effect. Her A4 increases Rin's speed by 20% when entering combat or using enhanced skill for 3 turns, and her A6 gives Rin 12 gem energy when casting ultimate. For Eidolons, her E1 makes it to where if one instance of enhanced skill consumes 30 or more gem energy, Rin gains shadow gem equal to the amount of gem energy consumed. Holding shadow gem makes the skill enhanced. Enhanced skill will consume all shadow gem, does not trigger the effect that converts skill points into gem energy, and does not consume gem energy. Her E2 increases Rin's skill damage dealt by 30%. Rin being on the field will make all skill damage dealt by allies become 130% of the original damage. Her E4 makes the crit damage boost from her talent stack up to 2 times now, for Rin specifically, and her E6 increases Rin's all-type res pen by 20%. Casting ultimate gives 24 gem energy and 1 extra turn to Rin. For Lightcone options, overall, no matter her actual spot of being a main DPS or sub DPS for Archer, the signature is going to be the best. 18% crit rate, character consuming 4 or more skill points in a single turn will give the wearer Radiant Crown for 3 turns, which will make damage that allies deal ignore 20% of the target's defense, and skill damage by the wearer increases by 72%. Effects of the same type cannot stack. Crit rate makes her easier to build, as you also want to get to 100% crit rate, and the effect is really easy on our teams because she herself can easily consume those skill points needed. As a sub DPS for Archer, Archer is going to be burning through all the skill points, hence why getting the Radiant Crown effect is going to be very easy and you will always have it up, and that's a free 20% defense ignore for the entire team for any damage they're doing, and also specifically for Rin, 72% skill damage, which her damage isn't something super significant on the Archer team, but it's still there. And then for main DPS, that is absolutely insane. So nonetheless, if you're running her a main DPS or sub DPS, this is going to be her best option. Another option she can use is a Noxus signature for 10 energy at the start of the wearer's turn and 20% defense shred when attacking an enemy by the wearer. The damage percent unfortunately is not something you can achieve since she doesn't implant a weakness. However, it's mainly for defense shred and something it does enable, because on Archer's team, sometimes defense shred, it's not always easy to get to 100%. It's actually quite hard. And so when this can help you push up the team's defense shred / ignore values to over 70 to 80%, the more valuable this does become. Also, this enables her to run a specific relic set that I will talk about in the relic section, which if you are running that, it further increases the value of a Noxus signature. So in cases, a Noxus signature is also very good on her. The Herda signature is also very good on her at the same time because it does give crit rate, 60% skill and ultimate damage when the wearer uses ultimate, and also 1 skill point when casting ultimate. She does have the energy required, so that extra skill point can come in clutch, especially on a team that consumes so many skill points. While the recovery on the team is really good, still any extra skill points that you can get can prove to be useful. Increases her own damage by a lot. Skill and ultimate are the ones she's going to be doing, primarily skill, and also makes her easier to build. So this would be a very good option for her own personal damage with a very tad bit of support with an extra skill point. Inherently, there isn't many supportive options when it comes to erudition, so you kind of just focus on her damage, which is kind of why I'm saying what I'm saying. With another option being the Battle Pass Lightcone. Today is another peaceful day, which is able to increase the wearer's damage based off points of energy. each point giving a 0.20% increase with a maximum of 160 energy taken into account as 5.40%, and her energy is exactly 160, so she gets the full effect of this Lightcone. So this is going to impact all her forms of damage, so also a nice increase. One more coded for main DPS is Genius's Repose, which is 16% attack and also 24% crit damage when the wearer defeats an enemy for 3 turns as 32% attack and 48% crit damage. Two good values. She scales off attack, she does want to crit. The reason I say this is for main DPS is because on the sub DPS side, there's not going to be many times you're defeating an enemy. There are times where maybe an enemy on the side would get defeated by Rin, since Archer is going to be bursting down the main elite / boss. So in those cases, you can still use it, but this uptime is going to be very inconsistent. If for main DPS, she's going to be the one that is defeating everything. So in that case, you would be getting the effect pretty easily. So that's why I mainly recommend this for main DPS Rin if you don't have any of the options that I did mention already. For Relic Stats, overall the most consistent one and the one you want to overall run is going to be Genius. 2-piece providing 10% quantum damage, and 4-piece is able to provide up to 20% defense ignore. 10% for anything, and then an additional 10% if the enemy attack has quantum weakness. This just works really well with her actual kit, and even more so if you have investment. 2-piece will increase all her damage since she deals quantum damage, and the 4-piece defense ignore is going to be good. And then if they have quantum weakness, the set's value further increases. The reason I say investment is because the higher that you have for Shred and Ignore, the better it becomes. So if you have her Lightcone on the team, if you have something like Sparkle E2, if you're running her in a main DPS team and you have Cerebra E1 with her, then you can just stack and stack and stack and stack, and the more valuable it becomes, because Defense Shred / Ignore gets significantly stronger at around 70% and higher. From 70% to 100%, that's when you see the best increases. So even if you're not getting a full increase, the reason why even for main DPS, well, for main DPS, you always want to run this. For sub DPS specifically, there isn't like inherently many options. The only reason I'm not going to recommend Eagle is just because she doesn't ult enough to really warrant Eagle too much. In the beginning, the setup, it could work because you are able to get that ultimate pretty quick, but after that, it takes a while. So for main DPS, there isn't like many options besides the Genius and also Scholar, because Scholar also does work with 8% crit rate and also 20% skill ultimate damage with an additional 25% to next skill when doing ultimate. So that's just extra damage percent increases and also makes her easier to build. So this also works for main DPS specifically, and you can also run that as a sub DPS. Specifically for sub DPS, as I mentioned, not many options. You really just give her the Genius set, Scholar for either or if you're running her main DPS or sub DPS. However, if you remember when I was talking about the Anoxa Cone, there is one set that actual Lightcone enables, and that is the Master Smith set. 2-piece is useless, however the 4-piece will increase the wearer's crit damage dealt to enemy targets in the defense reduction state by 28%. Specifically, after the wearer inflicts defense reduction state on an enemy target, all allies gain Conburn for 2 turns, where damage dealt by ally targets with that will increase by 15%, and it's triggered again after the wearer uses an attack. Since she doesn't inherently defense shred at all, and the only Lightcone to give her that defense shred is a Noxus Cone, that's why this set is mainly only usable when you do have that. Otherwise, the 15% damage percent you're able to give to the team does not apply. You need a Noxus Cone for that to work, and this can actually be her best in slot if you do have that setup going. It's more something you lean on the sub DPS side, but it can be usable as a main DPS. But for main DPS, honestly, I would highly recommend just going the Quantum set, and also it does increase her personal damage by increasing crit damage dealt to enemy targets in the defense reduction state. So you have a Noxus Lightcone anyway, so you're going to be able to have that. And then depending on whoever else is on the team, you might have more shred. And then for planar ornaments, you can also give her really any of the supportive sets when you are running her as a sub DPS, as you're mainly focusing on Archer's damage anyways. However, a really good balanced one and the overall one I recommend is City of Converging Stars, which after the wearer uses a follow-up attack will increase by 24% for 2 turns. Enemy target getting defeated will increase the team's crit damage by 12% in the current battle. Since her joint attack is a follow-up attack, you are able to get the 24% attack increase. So that's going to be good for personal damage, and you're also increasing the team's crit damage by 12% once an enemy is defeated, which should not be a problem, as really any battle has a quick enemy you can defeat, besides like the occasional king stages where they only have one boss. So in any other scenario, this would overall be the one I'd recommend, but as I did say, as a sub DPS, you can give her any one of the supportive sets. Penacony with Archer works because they both are quantum, and also 5% energy regen rate is nice. The same thing with Tohsaka, 5% energy regen rate and 12% attack for the character position first. That also does work. If you are running her main DPS, in that case, I would recommend Tengoku with 16% crit damage and 3 or more skill points consuming the same turn, additionally increasing crit damage by 32% for 3 turns, 48% crit damage. That's going to be the best performing one for her main DPS potential. Although instead, you can also run Rudolent as well, as Rudolent also is able to work with 8% crit rate and 20% increase to the wearer's basic attack and skill, with their skill being the main focus of damage no matter where she's at. So this would be another good option as a main DPS, or even if you want to run her as the sub DPS and focus focus more on her damage. For the main stats on the relics, for the body, run crit rate or crit damage corresponding to which one you need more. For the feat, if you're running her main DPS, you always will run attack percent. On the archer team, you want to run speed because of a certain tuning that I'll talk about in the substat section in a little bit. So attack percent for main DPS, speed for sub DPS. For the orb, you can do quantum damage or attack percent. Quantum damage is a bit better, but if you have a really good attack orb, just use that. For the link rope, personally, I recommend attack percent in both main DPS and sub DPS cases because energy regen isn't going to help you in an insane amount. She doesn't inherently ult that much, hence why I don't really recommend energy regen either. But if you are to run an energy regen rope, then it would only be in the sub DPS category. For main DPS, always run the actual attack percent rope. Now for substats. So when we are going to talk about speed here for the archer team specifically first, the thing you want to tune her for is to make her act before Sparkle. The reason for this is because you want to reset the joint attack cooldown. So Archer on his turn, which Sparkle's turn is Archer's turn, is going to be able to proc. If it was something like Sparkle acting before Rin, in that case, it's not going to work out because you might already have it on cooldown, and then Sparkle is going to make Archer act before Rin, and then you don't get to reset it later on in the battle after the first time. So in that case, it does become very, very annoying. You want to have that joint attack ready for every time Archer does attack to get those skill points and extra damage. Do remember, since Rin does have a 20% speed increase, you are able to tune with that in mind. If your Sparkle is, let's say, 161 speed, getting your Rin to about 141 speed is going to bring her above that range. It's a lot more annoying if you do have a very fast tune Sparkle, like let's say you have a really fast E1 Sparkle with the Eagle set, Von Walk, so on and so forth. Then it definitely can be a lot more annoying. For people like that, you just want to tune Rin to the point where you don't at least get lapped by Sparkle on Rin's turn. So if Sparkle ends up acting twice before Rin, that's going to be very bad. If you have a really fast Sparkle on Eagle, DDD, all that kind of stuff, in that case, just try to tune it to where Rin doesn't get lapped by Sparkle twice. So Sparkle only acting before Rin a total of once. But ideally, you want to have Rin be faster than your Sparkle. So that's how you'd go about that. And then for any other case, crit rate, crit damage, attack percent. And if you're running her main DPS, in that case, skip the speed step entirely. Crit rate, crit damage, attack percent. Crit rate, you want to get it to 100%, as all DPS and sub DPS really want to do that nowadays. You just make sure to get that. Otherwise, damage drop off is going to be a lot. Crit damage, if you're running her as a sub DPS and you're focusing on speed more and getting that right, in that case, you wouldn't have to focus on it as much. Just getting it to around 120% is going to be fine. Although if you're running our main DPS, you're looking at around 140% or higher. Attack, you're also trying to get that as high as possible, and it doesn't inherently change too much, but getting it around 2500 is going to be good. And that is the full Rin guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, drop a like, it would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell for future videos like this, along with all the types of style content. And I'll see you later. Peace out.